wants to know how the quail and grouse populations are looking for this year. Cody, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, Chad, that's a great question and a really timely question. So for quail...
This week on Kentucky Afield, we went live on social media to answer all of your fall hunting questions, and we're bringing you those answers right now. It's all next on Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield. Every week, Kentucky Afield brings you features on hunting and fishing across the state.
That's my pup. I'm proud of him.
Here he comes right there. Let's get ready. Get ready.
Look at that. What a nice fish. Hey, we dug it up right there.
We did. There he is. Ooh, a nice one too. Boy, he's healthy.
What do we got?
That was awesome. Got the first elk.
Got one. Big smallmouth.
Hey, nice.
Double point. They're in there.
There they go.
Oh my gosh. Woo! Look at that joker. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Whoa, this is a good one.
That's better than good, Chad.
Hello and welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm your host, Chad Miles. Thank you for tuning in tonight for our annual Fall Hunting Question and Answer Show. Joining me tonight to answer all our questions, I have Dr. John Hast, who is the Big Game Program Coordinator. How you doing?
Doing good.
Answering all of our small game questions, we have another familiar face here, Cody Rhoden.
Thanks, Chad. I really appreciate doing this. I look forward to it every year.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And then we have Officer Paul Sorrell. And you're a fifth District Conservation Officer, and this is your first time doing the live show, so thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, today we've got a lot of questions that are already coming in. This show is all about all the hunting opportunities we have here in the fall, which includes a lot. It's a lot of our small game seasons. It's a lot of our bear, deer, elk hunting. Some of the hunting has already taken place. Archery season's been going on for a while now. Some of our small game opportunities are already present, and now crossbow season's open, right? So if you're a hunter and you love to be in the woods here in Kentucky, we've been blessed with some good weather this week. It's a good time to be hitting the woods, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
Well, let's go ahead and start getting to some of our questions here. It looks like we've already got questions that have come through. Right off the bat, we've got a question. It's a deer question about CWD. So
right.
This will be you.
Yep.
So Gary Jones says he lives and hunts in the 5-county CWD zone. We'll have you tell us a little bit about that in a second. But what are the statistics for this area, and where can he find that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to our hunters that have been great down there, we've sampled upwards of 7,000 deer, specifically in that CWD zone the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. We've had 0 come back positive for CWD, mm-hmm. which is great. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue that coming into this season. And especially him being a hunter down there, he knows we've kind of reeled things in a little bit each year, and it'll be even less this year. So that mandatory check will just be the first 3 days of gun season.
Okay.
So that's the 11th through the 13th. A lot of the check stations are in the same place, but be sure to check online. We moved a couple of them around, but the old standbys are still in the same place. And then for county-specific information, our CWD page on fw.ky.gov, it'll have all 5 of those counties broken down by number of samples, and obviously there'll be 0 positives there, but you can see how many we've sampled by county.
Anytime you start dealing with collecting data for wildlife, there's a hassle to collect that data, and there's time, effort, and energy from biologists and hunters to get that data, but it's really, really important, and you're gonna have both sides. You're gonna say, oh, you know, you're putting too much time, effort, and energy and causing too much hassle for the hunters. There's going to be the other side that's going to say, why not sample every single one of them?
Right.
But going to 3-day is a really good kind of balance there, because you're going to get a lot of samples. What percentage of the deer are going to be harvested in the first 3 days of the season?
It's a good number, and then statistically, it's the number we need to be very comfortable with what's happening in those 5 counties. We can get that. I mean, opening day by far is the biggest harvest in that area.
And even if the weather's bad, it's the next day or the very first good day.
Exactly.
So there'll be a lot of deer taken in that first 3 days. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, next question. This is, looks like Quail and Grouse question from DJ Mann. He wants to know how the quail and grouse populations are looking for this year. Cody, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, Chad, that's a great question and a really timely question. So for quail specifically, we just finished up our rural male carrier survey. So with that survey, we asked almost 600 rural male carriers in the state of Kentucky when they're driving around in their routes the last full week of July, if they could just write down how many quail and rabbits they see while they're driving around delivering mail in the rural parts of the state. And so where you were just mentioning, we get all this, we ask for all these data and then we get all these data back. It takes some time to process. So we're just now processing those data. It looks like the quail season this year is going to be as good or a little bit better maybe even than last year. And so as we know, the quail population has been precipitously declining in the last 4 decades or so, right? And so, but right now, we're kind of leveling off. So essentially, we're in a zone where we're experiencing similar numbers, relatively similar as the last couple of years. And the grouse population is a little bit bleaker of a picture. So they're pretty much isolated to far eastern Kentucky, where there's still decent habitat for them. And so a lot of that decent habitat is like really early successional forests and things that we used to have from mining operations and things like that. Essentially where we're seeing a lot of grouse these days is from more recent storm damage. So things like tornadoes that happened 5 or so years ago and things along those lines. There's still grouse in our woods, but grouse hunters are gonna have to, they know they'll have to put a little bit more boot rubber down to find those. And we were actually talking earlier before the show about quail in East Kentucky. So a lot of these hunter access areas, the open lands from the mining operations in East Kentucky are holding a lot of birds, and it might be something that our sports people are maybe overlooking. I know even I have been overlooking it the last few years. I generally go to West Kentucky to hunt birds, and it's there's good numbers out there in East Kentucky.
Every year on our elk hunts, when we go to Eastern Kentucky, we see quite a few coveys of quail. And we went and did a couple rabbit hunts down there, and we flushed more coveys of quail in Eastern Kentucky on coal mines than I do normally when I go to Western Kentucky.
Okay, for
so
sure.
They're definitely there. There's no question.
Awesome, yeah, I love to hear
So
that.
your mail carrier survey, what does, they didn't ask, but I'm a houndsman and love those rabbit dogs.
Yeah,
How did that look?
Yeah, so again, pretty much on par. So if you remember back to small game, generally in the state of Kentucky, kind of oscillate or cycle in these big 7-year cycles. It probably has something to do with weather. Most small game species cycling does, especially in our far northern states, if there's a bad winter or something like that. We've been pretty lucky in Kentucky as far as not having the type of weather that would suppress the animals that are left on the landscape in the wintertime. I know we've had some bad weather, some floods and some tornadoes. For the wildlife, though, luckily, that's not as bad as, say, 3 feet of snow on the ground for many weeks in a row, right? And so we haven't had that in the last few winters in Kentucky, so that allows more animals to get to the spring, to make more young rabbits and more young quail, and then, again, that means more animals in the fall. So we have pretty mild winters, which have led to good reproduction. And on the quail side and on the rabbit side, as you well know as a houndsman, the springs have been relatively dry at the right periods of time, right? So we haven't had, well, this year it was so dry that, a lot of the hay cutting in the state was kind of delayed due to that dryness. And that wasn't great for our producers out there, but it was good for the animal species that use that stuff for nesting. And also, they're just not inundated with all that rain coming down at one point in time.
So as far as quail, you think will be a little better or equal to last year, and rabbits is about the same?
About the same, yeah. So I think we're kind of holding steady right now, and that has a lot to do with the winter weather and also the spring weather.
Okay.
That's been pretty consistently good.
All right, good news. Next question is from Ryan. He wants to know what changes have been made to fall turkey hunting this year. Now, fall turkey hunting is something that people don't participate at the level that they do in spring turkey hunting.
Right.
But fall turkey season can be a lot of fun.
It can be.
Tell me a little bit about any changes. First off, were there changes made this year?
There was changes to the fall turkey regs. The biggest being that hunters are only allowed to harvest 2 legal birds in the fall now. One bird with a visible beard longer than 3 inches, and 1 bird with no beard or shorter than 3 inches.
Okay.
So essentially 1 bearded and 1 beardless bird.
So, and last year that was like 4 birds, only
birds.
so many could be taken with a shotgun. I can't remember exactly the rules, but this year essentially half of the harvest legally is what you're going to be allowed to do, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And does it matter as far as how you take them? What type of firearm versus archery versus?
Nope, doesn't matter.
Okay, so two birds, one of which can be beard longer than 3 inches, one of which is shorter than 3 inches,
Or non-visible.
or a hen, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's a big difference between the spring and the fall turkey season. Is that in the fall season,
Spring season, it's only bearded birds.
only bearded birds. Now you've got you can take a beardless or a hen.
Correct.
All right, next question is from, looks like we've got Cherokee Gibson. What's the process for changing zones for deer? Apparently they're talking about zone 4. If they wanted to change the limit of deer taken in zone 4, I'm guessing they probably wants the number of animals reduced.
Yeah, potentially.
Or maybe raised, I don't know. But
Yeah.
if someone says, man, I just don't think that the zone I'm hunting, that my zone correlates with what I'm seeing in the field. How do you go about getting that adjusted?
Yeah, really 2 ways to do it. So number one, give us a call. Call our 800 number up here, ask for one of the deer biologists, and we'll just have a discussion and see where you're at and see if we can either explain some things or, we're looking for that input from the field, if we need to change something in the future. And then second would be working through your district commissioner. So you can go on our website, you'll get a list of your commissioners and, express what you're seeing in the field to them. And then they might bring it through and, that's essentially how reg gets changed.
This is kind of the same rule or the same way that if someone called me and said, hey, I want the limit to be 10 inches on Taylorsville Lake for crappie, find out who your commission member is in your district. There's maps on the website. More info, I think, is how you get to it. And it shows a map, and based on what county you live in, you have a person that's essentially, that's your representative.
Yeah.
You reach out to that individual and you tell them what you'd like to see done and start there. If that person decides to get his other commissioners involved, that's how rules and regulations are made and changed or adjusted. So that's kind of the process on whatever you want to see done in the state of Kentucky, right?
Yep, absolutely. And we're on the science end, but we're also always looking at the sportsmen that are out there in the field and trying to mesh those two up where everybody's happy.
Because we're talking about data. And we talked about all the ways that we get data, and like we talked about the surveillance zone. We've got a lot of data for these counties based on harvest numbers and trends, and so you've got some data you want to look at, but that may not tell the whole story sometimes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you have some input, we'd love to hear from you, right? Yep.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
a great point. We also have, I'll just plug this really quick. We have a commission meeting coming up this Friday in which those individuals sit down for a whole day, and it's open to the public. So you can watch it on our YouTube page. There's links on our website to find those things and kind of see how the sausage is made, right? And as you were mentioning, these people are the conduits from the sports people to the science to the agency for all these regions in the state. And so if anyone's interested, like I said, we'll have a commission meeting this Friday, and they happen, quarterly. And so log on and check one out.
All those agendas and everything is up there, and you want to try to get on one of those agendas. Maybe that you talk to a commission member and they like to hear what you have to say. You may end up on the agenda to come speak to other sportsmen and women and other commission members. So if you're interested in something and you're pretty passionate about it, the way you get it done is through your commission members, and then come to a committee meeting. If it gets forwarded on, it goes to a commission meeting. And that's where all of our rules and regulations are set in law, right? So that's the way to go about it. Next question is from Carly Smith. Like to search the timber and flush woodcock with my bird dog this fall. Are any areas of the state better than areas for woodcock? There you go.
That's a great question. And so woodcock are a migratory bird in the state of Kentucky. Essentially, they're moving from north to south, and that's where we set our hunting season is try to catch that migratory pathway. And the best time to hunt woodcock in the state of Kentucky is when they're moving through, obviously. There's some individuals that might spend a lot more time here than others, but the big pulses will come down from the north on their way to the deep south. And there's different ways you can figure that out. There's tracking. I think the Rough Grouse Society or American Woodcock Society has a kind of a migration tracker. That's a decent way to do it. Talking to other sports people that hunt woodcock. There's unfortunately not a lot of woodcock hunters in the state of Kentucky, which has always kind of vexed me. I have a bird dog myself for upland birds, and it's a great way to get your dog out there. They're really good for young dogs. They hold really well, and they can really get stacked up in the state of Kentucky. They're not, like I said, they're not here. They're not like Bob White that stay here year round and we can hunt them for many months out of the year. It's a pretty short season, but sometimes within that short season, they can be really stacked up. And so they frequent areas, bottomland areas, bottomland hardwoods, as well as they're especially in these really thick early successionals, what we call early successional forests, or forests where there's a little tree that's the size of a pole here and here, and it's really hard to get through. That's where the woodcock are going to be. Moist soils, so woodcock eat almost exclusively earthworms, and so anywhere you think there'd be earthworms up next to the surface of the ground, that's where they're going to be with that heavy cover aspect. And again, like I said, I've been woodcock hunting a lot on some of our WMAs, and I have never ran into another woodcock hunter, you know. So yeah, it's a great way to run your dog on some birds if you're in between seasons or you're just trying to freshen your dog up. It's really a good place to be. We have a lot of WMAs, especially our WMAs are associated with core property that have some of these bottomland or very moist areas. Dix River is coming to mind. Dix River WMA has some good areas for that. That's kind of in south central Kentucky. But again, I would look on our website, go to our website, and if you see an area that you think there might be some of that sort of wet, early successional habitat, call the WMA managers. So we have public lands biologists that are on these areas that know the areas like the back of their hands, and they'll be able to tell you if they've been seeing woodcock.
Woodcock is a fascinating bird too, is it not? I mean, if you go and do a little bit of research on a woodcock, it's hard to not love these birds. They've got their mating dance and the way they do that, and the way that they do their flying and spiral. We actually did a show down around Madison. We were in Madison County, and we were doing a show on woodcock. And tell you what, you want to be amused? Google the American woodcock dance, and pretty interesting animal. Next question here is from Carter. If I live in Zone 2 for deer, can I go to Zone 1 and harvest unlimited does and then return to Zone 2 and still have my 4 deer tags for Zone 2?
Yes.
Good question.
Great question.
Because this is a question that there's some confusion. And when he says, when I live here, it doesn't matter where you live at all, right?
Yep.
It all only matters on where you're hunting and number of deer taken in that, not county, but in that zone. Because you could go from Zone 2 and be in a different county, Zone 2, still taking deer from Zone 2, right?
Yes.
So give me a quick overview of how this works.
Yeah, so first off, there's a really good, the hunting guide folks put together a really good chart, because this was one of those things that we thought was confusing for years and years and years. But essentially, yeah, in any Zone 2 counties, you're stuck to that Zone 2 bag limit, that 4 deer bag limit. You can then hop over to Zone 1's kill unlimited. You can then hop down to Zone 4 and kill, the Zone 4 limit. So it's what zone you're in. It got nothing to do with what particular county you're in, but what sector of zones. And you're basically following what's outlined in that chart.
Interesting thing, we talk about unlimited doe harvest, and this is in zone 1 counties. And people ask me all the time, oh my gosh, how in the world do they have unlimited doe harvest? But the interesting thing is at the end of the year, when you pull all your data, a perfect ratio would be a 50-50 ratio between males and females, or does and bucks taken, right? With unlimited doe harvest in all of Zone 1 and 4 in Zone 2.
Yep.
And some areas you're only allowed to take bucks in Zone 4. What's our ratio look like?
Yeah, it's about, it's a little bit doe skewed. I mean, the good thing about the hunters here in Kentucky is they will put a doe or multiple does in the freezer, which is great. And that's helped really spearhead the bucks that we have here in Kentucky. So we've got hunters that'll go out and go after those does. And you don't see that in a lot of other states. They're purely buck hunters. So that's a great thing here.
Yeah, but it's still not too far off from 50-50, right? It's pretty close. So a lot of people will, they want the antlers and they're going to hunt and they take one deer and they're kind of, okay, I'm done. Well, those people that are taking unlimited does in Zone 1s are doing that in areas where the population needs to be reduced a little bit.
Yep.
And the quality venison's out there, and that's going out and take a doe. So Tell you what, I take full advantage of that every year,
Yeah.
and love to put a couple in the freezer.
And I will say, still a 1 buck limit,
Yeah.
regardless of what zone you're in.
Yeah.
We left that off the front part of that
Yeah,
explanation.
it doesn't matter
but
what zone.
Doesn't matter
it's-
what zone, 1 buck per year.
Yeah.
Yep.
An important thing to remember with that is, people hear unlimited does. They still have to have a permit for that doe. So your statewide permit comes with 4 deer, but then once you fill all those deer, then you can buy additional deer permits as well. So
And
as long
you
as you
get
continue,
2 for $15.
2 for $15.
So you get 4 when you buy your initial deer tags, and then if you fill those 4 and you want additional deer permits, you
Right.
get 2 deer, and it's a $15
$15
to go buy
Yep.
two additional tags. Interestingly enough, I know several years ago we changed it, but we used to be a buck tag and a doe tag, and now if you want to go into unlimited county and kill 4 does, and then go buy your tag, you still have a buck tag, and
Right.
so you don't. There's no fear or concerns there. You
as
get
long as
1
you
buck.
have 1 antlered deer checked in.
Yeah,
Yep.
one buck tag. All right, there you go. Next question is from Daniel. I was seeing more rabbits on my farm, and then I started seeing more bobcats, and the rabbits seemed to be gone. Any tips?
That's a great question, and believe it or not an uncommon one. And so I guess I would like to have a conversation with this person, ask more questions. Generally speaking, the issue of not seeing as many rabbits, it probably depends on the season. Maybe the brush and stuff has grown up more, so it might be, a lot of times when we have this question, sometimes it comes down to, are they actually there and you're not observing them, or are they actually not there, right? And if you've seen more bobcats, that's really neat. Now, I don't see that many bobcats, you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And a lot recently, with not only small game but other game species, a lot of predation management and stuff has come into the conversation. So going out and trying to do something about the predators to help the small game, and kind of the boilerplate thing that we tell people. Again, there could be a lot going on in that question, but where I like to start at is, these animals have existed with predators for eons, right? They can get away from them, given the right resources. They're able to live and outlive and outnumber the predators, right? We know that. And generally speaking, if we're seeing more or one or the other, it's a habitat issue, right? So they don't have enough resources to hide from that predator, or they don't have enough nesting resources, for instance, or any other life stage resource that they might need that might be missing. And so I'd say, maybe think about what has changed. If nothing's changed on their farm, what's changed around their farm or the property they hunt. Maybe somebody new moved in and they were raising cattle, but now they just bush hogged the whole place,
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
again, just reducing the amount of cover around that area that they're hunting. And yeah, the predation thing has been brought up a lot. There's no doubt, with the ban and with DDT many years ago and stuff like that, we're seeing more hawks and more raptor species. Those things will take rabbits. Bobcat numbers are going up. So are coyote numbers and stuff like that. But again, the very first thing we want to talk about is the habitat, because that's easier to do. Sometimes people think, okay, I'm seeing the bobcat, I'm going to go out, I'm going to trap all the bobcats, and then I'll have all these rabbits. In theory, that makes sense. I mean, that totally makes sense. But in reality, we know from the academic studies, and there's been a lot of this interest, especially in the Deep South, in concerning quail. It's actually really hard to get every last bobcat, especially if, say, you own 40 acres or 400 acres. All the other bobcats around where you can trap are going to come back into that place. You'll never actually be able to get ahead of that. And that's 365 days a year.
The
of trapping.
range is incredible. Bobcat
Yes,
range can
definitely.
be counties.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Multiple counties. So it's the fact that they are seeing bobcats is really interesting.
That's cool,
because
yeah.
you don't, spend a lot of time in the woods. I see bobcats in and around the lakes from time to time. Not a lot. You don't see
totally
a lot
agree.
of bobcats.
Yeah.
Now they're around. They're pretty
Yeah.
elusive. They're around.
They're very elusive, yeah.
Most counties, I think, probably do have bobcats in Kentucky, but the fact that they're seeing bobcats is pretty unique. Now, if they really want to protect the rabbits, you
Put
do
them in
it.
the bush hog.
You
Yeah.
bush hog, and don't bush hog. Make sure
bush
you
hog,
let things grow up so they got an opportunity to get away.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work out and you decide you want to legally harvest or trap bobcats, well, that's a great hobby to get into.
Yeah, we have a nice long season for that to do it,
Yep.
and that's totally an option on the table. But I always like to say, going out there, running your trap sets, that's a lot of work. Just not mowing oftentimes is much easier. It's not doing anything, you know what I mean? In some instances, not doing stuff is actually the best thing you can do for the small game out there in the Commonwealth.
Very good. Next question is from Griff. Wants to know if the Department of Fish and Wildlife ever work with cities regarding high deer populations. Do we have cities that contact us going, hey, we got to do something. We got too many deer.
Yeah.
And how do we work with that?
Absolutely, a variety of different things. We've had a number of parks that have approached us with some overpopulated deer, and it's very situation specific. We've had a number of fairly successful urban deer kickoffs, mainly with archery equipment over the years, and it's just something that with the bureaucracy and the fact that it's an urban setting, tend to take time. But certainly call one of our deer biologists, and we'll check the situation out. Might already have something in the works in that area.
Urban bow hunting is such a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about wanting to have a piece of deer hunting property close to home. Well, if you live in an urban area and you have maybe 5-6 acres, it doesn't take a lot.
Yep.
It's a great opportunity to take deer. And some people are like, oh my gosh, you're shooting these pet deer. Well, you're probably doing those deer a favor because as they become very, very, very used to seeing humans and people are feeding them out in their backyard all the time, there could be complications there with overpopulation.
Absolutely.
Being run over by cars. I mean, deer need to have a fear response of humans. That's the way it works best. And get out there and hunt them a little bit. And you maybe not the deer that you take, but you might be doing the herd a favor, right? Yep. Next question is from Joseph. Why doesn't Kentucky have a wanton waste law?
We actually do.
Okay.
It's a brand new law that went into effect just this past June.
Okay.
Before, we did not have a wanton waste law, so you could take as little or as much of the meat as you wanted. With the new one in effect, it states that you have to take all 4 quarters and the back round roasts at the very least.
Okay.
So it's hopefully it's going to be a big improvement. We don't see as much waste, carcasses dumped with just the back straps cut out.
Let me ask you a question. So let's say that it's deer season and you're using a firearm and you put it right where a lot of people want, right through that front shoulder, and it's significant amount of damage.
Right.
Are you still legally required to remove them even if you're looking at it, you're like, okay, it's lead bullets, there's lead, I really don't want to eat this front part because it's shot through there. How do you handle that?
Well, with it being a new law, new regulation, we haven't come across that yet.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of officers have enough knowledge and discretion to be able to look at that and say, okay, there's not much to salvage from this piece. You've taken everything else that you could. I'm not going to say cut a break, but it's understandable that there's nothing to harvest off that quarter.
Yeah, I gotcha. Because some people do intentionally try to, if you want to put one down right there, perfectly placed shot, takes out both legs and vitals, and down they go.
Absolutely.
It's going to make it a little different on the as far as the meat you're going to be able to take from there. So, very good to know that that wanton waste law is now in effect here in Kentucky. Next question is from Schaefer. Why did the youth and muzzleloader seasons get moved back in October?
Yeah, we had a weird calendar this year.
Okay.
So that's the answer to that one. So, in reg, youth is second Saturday in I guess this year, third Saturday in October, and we've just got we've got a little weird calendar this year. Messed up elk season a little bit and split some stuff up, but they've not been changed from previous, and we'll be back to that regular calendar here.
A lot of our seasons, be it opening day for deer season, turkey season, we see this all the time. Turkey season can range from, it's something like the 12th all the way up to the 18th or 19th or something.
Yep.
So usually they're not written on, it opens up on the 1st. It's usually like the first Saturday after and that's what's happened here.
Exactly.
It just so happens to be that the date is pushed back, what seems to be a week later, but it's not really a week later. It's 4 or 5 days later.
It is. We've got there was like an extra Saturday in September or something that kind of threw it off here I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. All right, and that's the same thing with muzzleloader, exactly the same? Youth and
It
muzzleloader?
is, it'll be the weekend that follows. So I think it's the 14th for youth and the 21st for muzzleloader.
Okay,
This
all
year.
right. I'll tell you what, that youth season is usually really, really good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the bad thing is it's a short window, so we hope the weather's right. But man, if you've got a youth you want to get out in the woods, get them out shooting now, get them to the range, and start getting prepared and ready, because it's usually a lot of deer movement during that time. It usually hits really, really, really good for deer movement. So next question is from Justin. What is the chance of seeing year-round nuisance trapping? Who wants to take this one?
There's a couple different ways that they can do it. They can contact their local officer, explain the situation, and either that officer or the regional biologist can get involved and see if it justifies it. And then there's some forms that can be filled, and they basically get permission to do it. It has to be within reason. What they're going to target has to be in the act of depredation when it's trapped. So if it's a coyote or raccoon getting in your chicken coop, it has to be that immediate vicinity around that chicken coop. It's not like you can put your traps out in the back of the property. But that act of depredation is the key part.
Okay, all right. Next question here is from Jordan Hicks. What's the expectation on caping and quartering a bear in the woods after the harvest to stay legal? I don't know if this is the wanton and waste law, but I don't know what they're exactly. It's talking about leaving the weight, and so you can measure the size. I'm not sure what they're asking, but tell me what you need to do if you're a bear hunter and you harvest a bear to stay legal.
The biggest thing that you have to do with the new system, where it has to be physically checked, you have to leave genitalia attached to tell the sex.
Okay.
So they want the skull and the cape, and as long as there's attached genitalia so that you can determine the sex, that's all it needs. So if you're going to cape it out, leave something attached so we can tell it's a boy or a girl.
Okay, all right, there you go. Next question is from Holden. Why aren't bikes or e-bikes legal for wildlife management areas? Any ideas here? I'll tell you what, they are getting popular. You watch TV shows. I don't know if they're getting popular and if you're seeing more of them. You're out all the time. Are you seeing more people using these e-bikes?
I've yet to see any in my area. Of course, I'm up in northern Kentucky, and it's a lot of hollers and dips. It's nothing like the mountains in eastern Kentucky. But I have not seen any at all, really, that I can recall. I know there's been more of them. I've heard like down in western Kentucky and stuff, places where it's a little flatter. But
they sponsor some of these TV shows, so I think that they seem to be maybe being used more than they're actually being used. But you see people that are using them, and if you go to a trade show of some sort, they're going to be there. You're going to see them. So they're essentially talking about these big fat tire-like bikes that people use to get off the road a little further than what most people are willing to just walk. So, and right now they e-bikes, they're not legal. Or what about regular bikes?
Regular bikes, I don't know.
On the WMAs I'm thinking of, I don't know if it's just a WMA specific rule, but some of the ones I'm thinking of off the top of my head, you're not allowed to have bikes in there.
Okay.
And that's, I think I'm not sure exactly where that came up or how it did, but I believe the hope behind that was, again, to kind of preserve the tradition of walking in and hunting, and we manage access. If we have a gate up or something like that on our WMAs, mostly we try to manage that access and keep it in a way that we can get back in there and do management, right? And so if we have motorized vehicles or something back there, that kind of confounds some of those activities that we might be able to do if we have people getting farther and deeper in those areas.
Sometimes too, you got to think, okay, I'm thinking as if I'm a conservation officer and I have a nice WMA for archery hunting in a more of a, like Taylorsville Lake, not that far away from the city. Man, do you really want to open that up to every person who's a biker, may not even be a hunter, to go, hey, I've got this new piece of property that I can bike ride on, and it turns out to be, you're trying to hunt on a wildlife management area managed with sportsman's dollars, but yet you look out here and you got 15 people on mountain bikes riding by you while you're trying to hunt. It would be somewhat frustrating too. So careful what you ask for sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, very true. And on all these WMAs, we're always trying to manage access plus, a quality experience for people, right? And that's what we try to showcase on our wildlife management areas is quality management and a quality experience for our sports people. And so I think that having bikes out there might run counter to some of those kind of theories. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Chase Parker wants to know if you only get 5 days off work to hunt the rut, which 5 days are you going to take? Sounds like Chase is getting ready to put in for some vacation.
That's right. I'm going to say starting about Halloween.
Yeah.
Would be my pick, and I will preface that with I'm not the best archery hunter, so better take that advice from somebody else.
You know what? You're right on the dates I'd pick. As an archer, I always say the first week in November is absolute prime. If I could have the first week in November for the entire season, that's what I would take. Weather's right, deer moving starting to really take place, and I'm an archer, so I want to be out there before the multitude of big bucks have been taken off the landscape. So, what about yourself?
When just being out in the field working, I mean, like you said, Halloween pretty much up until the beginning of modern gun season, there's just a huge uptick in traffic and activity. The amount of people that are at WMAs, you start seeing trucks in places more during the week than just the weekends. So I kind of agree. It's right around Halloween up until then.
Cody, what 5 days are you taking for deer hunting? Are you a deer hunter?
Let me
I know
think,
you're
yeah.
a small game guy, but you deer hunt as well, right?
Deer hunt as well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I could better that answer at all. And yeah, I mean, I got to agree with the Halloween time frame.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of success hunting late, the fabled second rut and stuff like that. I think there's something in there, like you could be successful kind of later in the season like that, but I just personally haven't had a lot of success.
For people who really watch the solunar chart and the moons, so what moon phase is it? Is it the red moon they talk about that everybody says, oh, that's the time to be in there?
Heard something about that, yeah.
So I know a lot of people really pay attention to that. I'm sure there's something to it. Maybe if you're trying to pick some days, look at that. You can't do it by weather because you don't know what you're going to get. But if you can kind of look at moon phases and patterns, that might not be a bad approach too, depending on if you're a bow hunter or a gun hunter. But I'm with you. If someone just says pick a date, no other information other than just the calendar, I'm going first week of November. Last couple days of October, first week of November. Next question here is from John. What are the best places to quail hunt in the state? And I guess we probably need to talk about public land or counties, however you wanted to go about it.
Yeah, well, I love plugging our public lands. And so the number one place I like to personally go and hunt is Peabody WMA in Ohio and Muhlenberg County. So we have, that WMA is huge. It's almost right now it's almost 40,000 acres in size. There's 2 tracks that the Green River kind of splits. The Sinclair unit, which the main office is on, and the Kin unit, which is across the river. And both those tracks, it's reclaimed coal ground. There's a lot of open lands out there. It's very, that's probably one of our best areas, public land areas to hunt quail. We have some of our highest numbers out there. They're very much scattered across that landscape. And so when I tell people, it depends on who I'm talking to, if they're wanting to come to Kentucky or they're in Kentucky and they want to hunt birds, it depends on what kind of their expectations are. And for Kentucky, it's about as good as it gets, honestly. You'll be walking a lot and you'll be able to see a lot of cool stuff out there and really putting the rubber to the road. But yes, that's totally worth it. We have another WMA in Northeast Kentucky called Clay WMA. That's in Nicholas and Bath County. And a similar thing, most of that WMA is actually forested, being in the eastern part of the state, but they have good quality. The open lands they have are very quality open lands. Again, a lot of native plants and stuff like that. And there's a couple of tracks out there that are, the T57 track is really good. That's kind of a smaller track. And there's some other ones around on that unit as well. And there's good numbers up there. And we were just talking about the East Kentucky, a lot of the reclaimed coal ground, the hunter access areas. They got birds out there. And as we were talking about earlier in the show, there's not that many people out there utilizing these areas for upland hunting.
Yeah, there's people out here watching us on a keyboard right now. And those guys that love Clay WMA are pounding that keyboard. You're getting a good talking to through the keyboard right now. He's giving away our secret spot. Clay WMA is a really good spot if you've never been out there. If you're a small game person,
yes, It's wonderful. And I'll tell you, we keep really close tabs on Peabody, Clay, and Rockcastle River WMA for our small game populations. We have hunter check in and check out. It's mandatory on the site. You have to check in and check out and write down how many birds you saw and how many rabbits you saw and stuff like that. And through those data, and I've been telling this ever since I started working here 6 years ago, I've been telling people the same spots, and I go out there and hunt myself. I hunt on the weekdays, I hunt on the weekends, and I'm not seeing. And I understand there is pressure. That's what we have to interact with each other in these WMAs. And it is different than hunting on private land where you might have it all to yourself. But with these WMAs, the quality of the habitat is there that we believe at this point it can handle that pressure. If we can handle getting along with each other, you know what I mean? I've interacted with a lot of different sports people. 99% of the time, if I do see somebody out there, it's a positive interaction, A small game hunters are kind of a dwindling segment of the hunting population, which is a shame because, I know this is preaching to the choir for you, Chad, but, small game hunting is fast-paced. It's great to get young people involved in. You don't have to be a great shot. You don't have to be a great woodsman yet, to do some of this stuff, whether it's squirrel, rabbit, quail, even woodcock, stuff like that. It's a great way to interact with dogs in the chase. And
I think it's where every hunter should start. I really do.
I totally agree.
Youth hunters, you want to get into hunting, small game hunting behind a dog is probably, if you want someone to stay with hunting, putting them in a deer stand in November and tell them don't say a word, don't move, it's really kind of hard to keep someone's interest level up. It's hard to explain how exciting it's going to be when you finally get that opportunity. Putting somebody behind a dog in a small game situation, it's always exciting. And you know what? Be loud if you want, rub the dog, play around, whatever. It's just such a unique opportunity. That's the way to get kids involved in the outdoors is behind a dog, small game hunting.
Right, or getting somebody back into hunting. I've done that a couple times too, where they've done it in the past, and maybe they forgot how fun it was, and you take them out again, and boom, they're hooked again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jacob wants to know when can I apply for the elk hunt in 2024?
Yeah, right now for the 2024 season. So we've just this year changed regulations, and the application period opens on August 1st.
Okay.
And will going forward. So it used to be January 1. We backed that up through the fall, mainly because this is when we're all thinking about hunting. We've got a lot of folks that, jumping on to get their license for deer season. You can go ahead and get that elk draw for 24.
What's the window now for quota hunts? Because the deer season's, it's here for archery.
Yep.
When is the time for quota hunts and when's the drawing take place?
Yeah, it's still the month of September. So it closes September 30, and then they do the drawing just as quick afterwards as they can.
So if you want to put in for a quota hunt, you don't have many days. You better be getting on the computer and getting that taken care of. So, and then they do the drawing almost immediately after, a couple days after the 30th.
A couple days, usually the first week of October, they've got some results out.
All right. Evan Miller wants to know any gut shot tracking do's and don'ts. Man, this is interesting. I'm assuming he's talking about deer. So gut shot do's and don'ts. Got any tips here?
Patience.
But
Go
I think
slow.
so.
So you make a smoked shot we're going to talk mainly archery because that's kind of what's going in right now. And you make a shot and you're like, all right, that arrow hit right where I wanted it, confirmed it, saw it. How long are you waiting?
I'm an hour myself.
Okay.
If I can sit there and if I don't hear it crash, see it drop, I'm very much, you're not taking a chance sitting.
Okay.
So.
And if you make a shot and you're like, I'm not sure, how long are you waiting?
I'm along. Well, then that's when you got to start, the hamster wheel starts churning, all the bad thoughts coming to you. And it really depends on where that shot goes. But I'm all for waiting and give them some time.
My general rule on this is, I see it go down. I'm still waiting 20, 25 minutes. I make just a shot that I am 100% sure about. I'm probably going to walk down to the arrow site 30 to 35, 40 minutes, confirm that every indication is exactly what I thought. If I don't think it's a great shot, my general rule is 2 hours, locate the arrow, see what information that'll give me, because it's going to give you some information. The color of the blood, what it looks like, smell of the arrow, all the things that you can kind of confirm what you thought. And then I will look until I lose blood the first time, and then I'll back out and give it 2 more hours. That's typically the way I like to go about it. Now, things change. You got to look at the weather. I mean, it's the first thing. If I make a shot that I don't think is absolutely perfect, and it's an evening hunt especially, what's temperature going to get down to tonight? I mean, I want to know that type of information. If it's going to be warm, I'm locating a dog. I'm going to get a dog tracker on it, usually a couple hours after I knew I made that shot. But because you want to locate them as fast as you can in that situation. So, any other tips for tracking one that you're not sure about your shot?
Just like you said, inspecting that arrow, and another big thing is if you've got the sign and you start that track, tread carefully, because even if you've got good blood and maybe that deer's just bedded down, you could bump them, and that bump after that initial bed can sometimes be the deal breaker, because they get bumped and they're already on high alert, they're gone.
Oh, yeah. And I will tell you this too, if I didn't put this out there, my good friend Rachel Kroom would probably be like, hey, you should have mentioned, she's got a dog, a deer tracking dog. We've showcased her on the show. If you make a shot you're not sure about, she said the more you walk behind that deer, you're picking up scent on your shoes of that deer, and you're spreading it out. It can make it very confusing for a dog that's going to track. She's like, hey, if you think you're going to bring a dog in there, don't walk that trail and then track around looking for it, because you're messing with the scent trail. So she would probably want to make sure that I let you know that, hey, don't track all through there if you're going to be getting a dog, because you may make it more difficult for you and the dog. So
the amount of tracking dogs just in the past couple years has really gone up, just from what I've seen and heard of in the field. So if somebody's not sure, they probably have a dog somewhere close to them.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hey, some of those dogs are just fantastic too. I've seen some really, really good dogs that go right to your deer. It's amazing. Next question, Samantha, how can I get my hunter education certification before firearm season? This is an interesting question, because this is the time of year, right, that everybody's like, oh my gosh, I said I was going to get that done. Tell me the process, and if you have never applied for an exemption, tell me about that and the process that a person needs to go through to get their hunter safety card.
I try to convince people to save that exemption, like last minute type of situation. The big thing is now you can do the classroom portion of the hunter education online. You can get all that knocked out from the comfort of your own home, and then get on the website and find the nearest range day. Sometimes it's not as close as you'd want it to be. You might have to travel, but if it's to just knock out the range day portion, it might be worth it. You're not spending a whole day in the class and the range day. And then most of the instructors that I know in my area and I work with when I help teach classes, they're very accommodating to anybody who just wants to show up for the range day portion. Most of their contact information's on the website, so they can shoot them an email or give them a call and just tell them, like, look, I've already done the online portion, can I just show up to range? And they'll usually take care of you.
Todd Hoskins wants to know, why don't we have a preference point system for the elk draw?
Oh, yeah. So the big issue we've got here is we've got lots of people applying, and a very small segment of those people actually drawing a tag. There was some statistics out west, 400,000 people apply and 100,000 people get a tag for that year. So that other 300 is building those points. We don't really have an opportunity to build points here. What we did do is we've got our loyalty redraw system, this is the first year that those folks are actually out hunting now. Number of consecutive years that you've put in puts you in a position to get the permits that aren't purchased. So that is a de facto preference point system based on your numbers of applications, but it just wouldn't work. We've run the statistics every way around it, and you're talking a tiny minuscule advantage, and then your grandkid or kid that hasn't put in is guaranteed never to get one with a preference point system.
And we get asked this question about preference points. It's not, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife is not anti-preference point system. We actually have a preference point system, right? For duck blinds and other areas. Deer quotas. We use a preference point system. It's just the elk population is such a big number of applicants and a small number of drawn that this was a good compromise, I think. We're going to hear more about what people think about it. This is the first year, like I say, they're hunting right now. But essentially for people that had put in for all of the hunts and still were not drawn, they were given first opportunity for unclaimed tags this year. And now they're going to be on the hunter list. So that list is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you are one of these very unlucky people that have put in 20 years now and not been drawn, you keep doing it in the next 2-3 years, you're going to get a phone call. You're going to get a tag. It's that close right now. The numbers of those individuals that have put in every single year without being drawn is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Absolutely.
So it's not technically a preference point system, but it's a loyalty system.
Rewarding the people that put in every year.
Next question. This is from Elizabeth. How would my standard poodle stand up against typical setters or pointers while upland hunting? People do hunt with poodles, do they not?
No doubt. Yeah, no, it's one of the oldest gun dog breeds in the world, really. And there's people in the deep south that hunt them a lot on bobwhite and other quail species as well. That's a great question, and I represent all small game hunters. I personally am an English setter, so I would say that I'm sure it would do just fine. Those types of dogs are more flushing dogs, so the setters and the German Shorthair pointers, other pointing dogs, you kind of cast them out and they'll go and point and set on the animals, on the birds, and then you go to that animal and then you go flush the birds and shoot them. The poodles and the labs and other stuff like that, you can use them for upland hunting. They stay a lot closer to you and they'll just quarter back and forth right in front of you and they'll kind of stumble into the birds and flush them up. And so I would imagine that it would do just as well as my English setter.
That had to not be easy for you to say that. 'Cause I know it's so crazy. We get all caught up in these pure breed dogs, but if your dog likes to hunt, your dog likes to hunt. And if it will get out there and push through that brush and it gives you extra legs and noses on the ground, then you got a better chance to jump game. So, I'm a houndsman and like the beagles, but for you who's an English guy to go, you know what, there's a good chance that poodle may be just as good.
Oh yeah,
maybe
no
so.
doubt. Yeah.
All these dogs have been bred. They all kind of started from their initial descent and have been bred to do very specific things, but that don't mean they're good at it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Everybody's had great hunting dogs. If you've had dogs for a long period of time, you probably had that one or two that every time you think about it, puts a smile on your face because that dog just had that desire to hunt. But you know what? The two greatest dogs in the world could have a litter that none of them will hunt worth a crap. You just don't know. It's just part of it. So maybe poodles if it's got the desire to hunt, it may be the way to go.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of people, traditionally, if you're going to hunt quail or grouse or woodcock in the state of Kentucky, it helps a lot to have a dog. You almost have to have a dog. And sometimes that can be a little intimidating to get started in having dogs. But what you just said, generally speaking, they either have it or they don't. There's really very little training that goes into having a good field dog, right? We're not talking about field trials or something where you're trying to get the dog to do something very specific, right? If you just want a hunting companion, and sure, they might bust a few coveys on you before you get there or something like that. If you just want a hunting companion, go talk to, there's a lot of, game bird chapters out there, Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, and stuff like that. These people would be super excited to talk to you about it. And, check it out. Again, a lot of people think there's so much training that goes into this. I trained my dog myself for 15 minutes a day when he was a puppy. And he's not the best dog in the world, but he's a great hunting companion, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's great. Great information there. Next question, Tyler. What type of fall hunting are you most looking forward to? Man, this is going to run the gamut right here. Got a big game coordinator, small game coordinator, conservation officer. What are you most looking forward to?
Man, I've got so we were shooting Sunday. I've got a buddy from college that's got a 12-year-old. He's going on his first deer hunt to my parents' farm on youth weekend. Shot the gun a little bit, got him lined out last weekend. That's probably what I'm most excited about right now.
What caliber are you taking with this young man?
So I'm letting him borrow a 300 blackout. Bolt action.
300 black. Sound like a big gun, but those blackouts are great for you.
No kick.
Yeah.
So, and he was handling it well.
All right, very, very, very good. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to quail hunting in East Kentucky.
Okay.
I haven't been out in that country much, and I'm getting some really good reports on, again, some of our hunter access areas. Also, a couple specific reports about people seeing a lot of birds. So I'm excited to go out there. We've been doing a lot of habitat management. We actually have an initiative going on right now to do a lot of prescribed fire in that country. And I went out there and turkey hunted some of the areas that we had burned last spring, and actually was successful getting a turkey while I was out there. I did hear Bob White, and I want to go back out there and hunt some of those areas that we've been doing prescribed fire on.
There you go. I knew this was going to run the gamut here. What about yourself?
Mine shifts a lot. So, you know, deer on camera and stuff, that always gets you excited. Have one buck in particular that I've been playing cat and mouse for 3 years now.
Okay.
Love to get an opportunity at him, but as I get later into the fall, I really start looking forward to what else comes in. I try to waterfowl hunt. My area is not the best for it, but I always get excited for that.
Oh, yeah. You know, that is a beautiful thing about Kentucky. There are a lot of opportunities. And I get asked this question a lot. If you got to one day to hunt the rest of your life, what would it be? And, you know, we talked about being behind a dog. I would probably do some form of small game. For me, it'd probably be a rabbit hunt. I just really, 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 really enjoy that. It's not my favorite way to fill the freezer, but as far as just a day out, walking, communicating, because it's such a social event, and utilizing some dogs to run rabbits, that would probably be what I'm most looking forward to. But the great thing about that is taking rabbits is fun, but you know, I go out and run dogs not during the season. So I say I'm looking forward to it. I'll have my dogs on the ground next week somewhere, you know, so you can do that before the season gets here. You just can't take rabbits. But so I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. Hopefully you learned something new tonight and you're looking forward to hunting here in Kentucky this fall. And remember, hunting and fishing on private property is a privilege. Always ask permission and thank the landowner. Until next week, I'm your host, Chad Miles, and I hope to see you in the woods or on the water.